I'm Camille, and this story is about my crazy mother. She had a new boyfriend every week, and one time she even dated her own cousin. It was so gross, but everything changed when she met Michael. He was a decent guy with a stable job, no drug problems, and no former arrest by the police. So when they got married, I was truly happy for them. But, of course, my mom had to ruin everything, because one day, my boyfriend and I came home late. We were completely wasted, and while I went to bed, he fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, he sent me a really disturbed message saying that my mom had made out with him last night while it was dark. He said he didn't notice it was my mom until it was too late, and they, you know what. Well, this wasn't the first time she had tried to destroy my life. Back when I was 14, I asked her to stop wearing miniskirts because it was embarrassing. But the next day, she stormed into my school class wearing the shortest miniskirt I'd ever seen and screamed, "My daughter Camille thinks I'm an embarrassment. She doesn't want her mother to dress like a b***." Afterwards, I was made fun of for years. But this time, she had slept with my boyfriend and taken things too far. I knew I had to take my revenge. So the next morning, I came very close to her husband, Michael, and said, "Stepdaddy, can you make me some breakfast?" I even fluttered my eyes. "Can you make me some breakfast?" I even fluttered my eyes at him, but he just ignored it. In the end, I showed him my boyfriend's SMS and told him that his wife had slept with my boyfriend. And for the first time, I saw him getting angry. I mean, no wonder. He had treated my mom with so much respect, and in return, she had cheated on him with a 20-year-old boy. I knew he deserved someone better, and that person was me. I'm not allowed to talk about the details here on YouTube, but let's just say that for the next few months, me and my stepdad Michael had a very close relationship, and somehow I got pregnant. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep the baby, but then I realized that having a kid with my mom's husband was the ultimate revenge on her. And Michael was a good catch anyway, so I had nothing to lose. But when I told her I was pregnant without knowing who the father was, she started laughing and said she had always known I would end up as a single mother. I got so mad. I was about to tell her the truth, but I knew it wasn't the right moment. And for the next few months, Michael took great care of me, even though my mom didn't like it. She said, "Michael, stop cooking her meals. She has to learn to be a single mom because that's what she is." It went on like this until I was giving birth. My mom was right next to me, making one sarcastic comment after the other, like, "Oh, this baby will be a problem child. It's already causing lots of trouble." At some point, I had enough and couldn't take it anymore. I screamed, "Michael got me pregnant. Your stupid husband got me pregnant. It's his child, you stupid. Michael got me pregnant. Your stupid husband got me pregnant. It's his child, you stupid." I'll never forget the look on her face. At first, she was just quiet. She wasn't sure if I was making a joke or not, but when she realized I wasn't joking, she went berserk, and it took 3 doctors to keep her away from me. Meanwhile, I was laughing so hard I almost fell out of bed. I knew I had finally gotten my revenge. And after I had given birth, Michael came inside to take a look at his daughter. I immediately knew he would be a great father. But then I noticed that he had a big bruise on his face. I asked what happened, and he said my mom had attacked him in the hospital lobby, screaming, "You got my daughter pregnant! You pig! I'll divorce you, you dirty piece of shit!" And afterwards, the police had to arrest her. We both started laughing, even though we knew this wasn't over yet. The next day, my stepdad went to work, but when he stepped out of his car, my mom drove her car right into him. Luckily, she missed him, and now she's serving a 5-year prison sentence for attempted murder. Of course, I feel bad for her. That's also why I decided to visit her in prison to apologize. But when she saw me, she went nuclear again, hitting against the window and screaming like a psycho. It was so scary, but I couldn't resist laughing again. Please understand that she had always been a terrible mom. When I was 9 and having summer vacation, she disappeared for 2 weeks. I was petrified and not sure if she was still alive, so I just hid inside my wardrobe all day and night. When she finally came back, I ran up to her to take her into my arms, but she just pushed me away and told me to go to sleep. To be fair, though, there were some funny moments. One time, she broke into our neighbor's garage and stole his lawnmower. And 1 week later, she did a garage sale and sold the same lawnmower she had stolen back to its previous owner for $100. Another time, I told her that my teacher was picking on me, and the next day, she stormed into my school and physically attacked that teacher. That's probably not the best way to show your love, but it still counts.
My family had the saddest Christmas tradition one can imagine, because every Christmas Eve, my mom would get me all excited and say, "Tonight Santa will come and bring you lots of toys, this time for real." But when I woke up the next morning and ran to our Christmas tree, I never found any presents. Then Mom would come into the room and say, "Oh no, did burglars break into our house again and steal all your presents? I'm so sorry." This repeated itself every year, and each time it made me cry. The world seemed so unfair to me. Only once I got older, I finally realized that my mom was too poor to afford Christmas presents. She had made up all those stories of us getting robbed on Christmas Eve, so I didn't figure out we were poor. But of course, I already knew that we were impoverished. I was living in a ghetto, and my ghetto school was so violent that teachers frequently got beat up by students, and kids like me who wore frayed shoes were made fun of all day. But then I got lucky. The best school in our city, which normally had a yearly tuition fee of $100,000, started a program to help underprivileged kids like me. I was somehow accepted into the program, and I thought I had won the lottery. For some reason, I believed that I could befriend the kids of powerful politicians and billionaires in my new school, and in return, they could secure me a good job after I graduated. But I was wrong, because these people don't want to be friends with you if you are not like them. Today, I wish I had never accepted the offer of going to this elite school, because while being poor is tough already, being poor while also being surrounded by a bunch of arrogant rich kids who keep reminding you how much better their life is than yours is even worse. Right on my first day, I learned that the school was separating their students into two groups. First, the rich and high-achieving kids who had inherited the good genes of their highly successful parents and now were groomed to take over their family businesses one day. Second, you had the typical rich kids who were irresponsible, arrogant, and drove to school in expensive cars. Each group was taught in different classrooms. And while I tried to join the high-achieving kids, the teachers made me take an IQ test first to see how gifted I was, and apparently I didn't make the cut. That's why I was put into the classes for lazy and low IQ students. Of course, I tried to make new friends anyway, and some girls were talking about horses, so I said, "Wow, you girls do horse riding?" The girls seemed uncomfortable talking to me, probably because I looked like a ghetto girl, but they were kind enough to invite me to go horse riding with them on the weekend. Only, when I arrived, they asked where my horse was. "I don't have a horse." "Well, you should have bought one." I wasn't sure if she was kidding or not, but I told them I'd just wait until they were finished. While watching them, I started chatting with a guy who turned out to be the personal assistant to the family of Anne, the girl that had suggested I should just buy a horse. He was the caretaker of her horse, and he told me a bit about Anne's rich life. He said her dad had thrown her a sweet 16 birthday party, with a fireworks so big that the fire department had to be on standby. And when Anne's dad found out the firemen didn't charge any money for showing up, he gifted them equipment worth $80,000, which included several heat-sensing goggles costing $10,000 each. It suddenly hit me how different my classmates' lives were from mine. My mom has never made more than minimum wage at her job, and most times she was unemployed anyway due to her depression. We were so poor that I often stole toilet paper from my school because we didn't have any at home. Anyway, after the horse riding was over, the girls and I sat down at a restaurant. I really wanted them to like me, so when they asked what my favorite country to visit was, I responded France, even though I'd never left the U.S. "Really? Me too. Last summer, my parents and I spent 2 weeks in the French Riviera. It's so much better than Italy." I continued, "Yeah, and the food is so good too." I thought things were going well, but then Anne said, "We have to talk about your outfit. It's hideous. You should come go shopping with us." Wow, she was inviting me to meet up again. Maybe she liked me. But it was hopeless. I didn't have the money for a new outfit. So I lied again, saying the way I dressed was just my style and I wouldn't change it. Anne didn't like that I had rejected her offer. So she said, "I guess you can't teach a pig how to fly." And they both giggled. I felt so embarrassed, but it got worse in school. When I greeted Anne in the hallway, she took me to the side and said, "Listen, I tried to include you in our group because my teacher asked me to. But you don't fit in. You dress like a hobo, and honestly, I want nothing to do with you." Ouch! She didn't understand that I would have loved to wear fancy clothes like her, but that I lacked the money to do so. After this incident, I stopped trying to make new friends. I became the quiet girl who didn't talk to anyone. During breaks, all I could do was listen in on my classmates gossiping. That's when I heard my classmate Matthew brag about his alleged relationship with our history teacher, Miss Colbert. He said, "My dad is giving me an allowance 10 times bigger than Mrs. Colbert's salary. She's dating me because I spoil her with tons of gifts. I even paid off her college debt." No one believed Matthew until he showed around photos of him and Miss Colbert kissing. I didn't see the photos myself, only the reaction of the other kids reacting to it. But in retrospect, it wasn't surprising at all. Matthew got bad grades in all subjects except in Mrs. Colbert's history class. Anyway, my teachers noticed that I didn't have any friends, so they often asked me why I wasn't trying more to fit in. I responded, "Fit into what? Driving $100,000 cars to school? No, sorry. I really tried to do that, but my parents are still poor." However, I also kept other kids at a distance, so they couldn't see that I was really just an uneducated girl from the ghetto. So, while I had always been an energetic and sociable kid at my old ghetto school, I had now become severely depressed. It took me some time to figure out why, but then it clicked. The reason was that I wasn't living an authentic life anymore. I had adopted the persona of a harmless girl, even though I was from the ghetto and had been through a lot of shit. Several times in my life, I've been jumped by crackheads who wanted to steal my food stamps and clothes. I have lived through winters without heating in my home, and I've seen the junkies near my house slowly switch away from drugs like crack and heroin and start using fentanyl instead. I got mad at myself for letting those spoiled brats at my school intimidate me so much. I knew I was tougher than all of them, so I swore myself to never be the quiet girl again. The next day in school, our teacher asked if someone wanted to apply to become school president. No one raised their hand except me. Then they all turned around and asked, "What do you promise to change in our school if you become president?" But with everyone's attention on me, I was too nervous to give a response. "Nothing. She will change nothing. That's different. She got my vote." I thought she was ridiculing me, but the other kids joined and chanted, "Make her president!" Finally, I let loose and started laughing too. Maybe my classmates weren't that mean after all. Well, guess who the only other candidate to become president was? Matthew, the guy who was dating my history teacher and paying off her college debt. He was more popular than me and the favorite candidate. But I told you that I'm from the ghetto and you better don't mess with me. He often left his phone laying on his table, so I just stole it, and to figure out his PIN code, I requested access to the school security camera footage. I told them that someone had confused my school bag with theirs and accidentally walked away with it, and now I wanted to find out who had taken it. But really, I just zoomed in on Matthew while he unlocked his phone in the cafeteria. 1379. Easy. Then I went through his photos until I found the one where he was kissing Miss Colbert. Of course, teacher-student relationships are strictly prohibited. So I told him, either you step back from your candidacy to become school president, or Miss Colbert gets fired, and you will be in the news for using your dad's money to prostitute your own teacher. I wonder how your dad will feel about reading that news. He withdrew his candidacy immediately, and with only one contestant left, I automatically won the presidency. The teacher told me being school president will look great on my resume when I should apply to my first job one day. But honestly, I'm just glad to be a badass ghetto girl again. In my acceptance speech, I even roasted Anne. I told everyone how she'd expected me to just buy a horse so I could go horse riding with her. I made some other jokes about how disconnected my classmates were from ordinary people like me. And even though the other kids do respect me now, I would still prefer to be back in my old ghetto school. I miss my old friends over there.